I'm Eric Bricker, and I've been a psychotherapist for over 25 years. One thing I can tell you for certain is that no one makes it through life unscathed. At some point, many of us will rely on the trusted counsel of another person to help us navigate difficult times, or to reconcile a troubled past. Whether conventional or unconventional, professional or informal, there are a lot of different forms that helping relationships can take. This podcast is an exploration into what makes these relationships work. Who are the people that help us? How do they help us? What do people need help with? My hope is to uncover as much as I can about this very human phenomenon, and I hope that you'll join me. This is the Good Counsel Podcast.
So I remember telling my sister, get me out of here before I hurt myself or someone around me. And I was really adamant about it. And I started grabbing my pillow. I grabbed my teddy bear. And all I knew is that I needed to get out of that house. And I don't know why, because I have a loving family, but I needed to get out of that house. And my mom was like, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to go up to my girlfriend's mom's house. And so I went to my friend's parents' house. And then I was on the phone with my ex-fiance now, I guess, for a good 2 or 3 hours, and not knowing what was going to happen the next day. So we were planning that night. We were, on the phone, we were planning a hike and, let's try to see what's happening. He threw a prenup in my face 10 days before. That's how it all happened. We tried to meet at a happy place, and it was kind of like Gloria Allred even said, she goes, if you sign this, she goes, you're giving away what California would give you in a divorce. You're signing everything away. And so we just couldn't come to a term. And I was ready to just kind of okay, let's do this. But then he ended up saying, I can't do this. And so that's kind of how that all transpired. But then we were just kind of thinking, okay, let's go have a hike. Let's, go have lunch. And then that never happened because the next day I went into a psych unit. My sister said, are you ready? And I said, yep, where are we going? I didn't know what she was working on at home. I had no idea that she was even making calls for me. But she goes, are you ready? And I said, yep, where are we going? And she goes, South Coast Medical, which is now Mission Laguna in California.
It sounds like with the relationship that you had with your sisters and the rest of your family, and the fact that everybody was there when you had this outburst and they knew you were struggling anyway because of the other things that were going on. It sounds to me like you were at a very trusting place that whatever they came up with for you was going to be to your benefit. And part of it is one of those great stories where no intervention was required because all it took was the mere mention of the option to go, and you just went because you knew you were ready.
I was ready, and I didn't know what I was ready for. All I knew is that I was ready for something. And she goes, okay, just take a shower, put on your pajama, bring your pillow and your teddy bear because that's all you'll need. And I said, okay. And next day, Minnie picks me up, and I get checked in by the ER nurse, and just my luck. It ended up being my girlfriend, my best girlfriend, who I grew up with down at the bottom of the hill when I lived in Monarch Bay. And her name's Amy, and she's in my book. And she goes, why are you here? And I'm like, I'm going into the psych unit. And she goes, at least you'll be safe. But I was like, now this is funny. My childhood friend is checking me into the psych unit, basically. So, but Laguna is small, and it's, who cares? I think, I think that's kind of what makes me a little bit different. And I share this with people, who cares?
I think at this point in your life, I have to imagine that your entire family was just stripped of privacy to such a degree.
It's who cares?
That maybe you were just conditioned for these kind of experiences. Maybe.
I don't know. But I'm like, who cares? I'm sick. I'm not well. I need help. And I knew that if I wouldn't get the help, I'd be dead. I mean, I should have died the night before.
In reading the book, it sounds like your experience in that facility was really positive.
I had the best experience.
Like quality therapy, quality group work. It sounds like it really turned a lot of things around for you.
It really did. And I don't know if it was my mindset that, okay, because I had nothing else to compare it to. I didn't know where I was. I'd never been in a psych unit before. I had never gone into therapy before. The psychiatrist just gave me medication and I took it, and not as prescribed, but that was my only experience with any type of, psychiatry at all.
In your experience of going to treatment, what do you think was the most profound turnaround for you? I think when people have a good residential treatment experience, there are often opportunities for big paradigm shifts.
Yes.
In terms of looking at something a completely different way. And it sounded like this treatment episode that you had was of that caliber.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to know, what were the big insights, the big paradigm shifts for you? What kind of turned things around for you?
I think, well, one, I went in with the mindset I'm not going to walk out the same person that came in. Like I had the will and the desire to change because, this was bigger than Nicole. This was a lot bigger than Nicole. This was like a culmination of everything, and we'll get into all of that. I think I just remember, now keep in mind, like I'm in a hospital. I'm in a psych unit where people are battling. Mine's an isolated incident, technically, but I'm in there with people who are struggling with schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorders, bipolar disorders, delusionals. Oh my God, like you name it, I was in there with all of them.
Well, I know that when someone is on a unit with a very varied presentation of like psychiatric presentation.
Thank you for putting it that way. Yes.
And you're not a person who's having a thought disorder or not prone to psychosis.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in the milieu with people who are that unwell.
Yeah.
That could be very daunting.
I was very compassionate. I wasn't scared. Keep in mind, I've always been an empath. I've always been a compassionate person, but I had never been exposed to mental illness before. To me, mental illness was the homeless guy downtown Laguna Beach talking to himself, licking the light post, right? Not the case. I remember this kid, Dan, and Dan was a new student. I think it was his sophomore year at UC San Diego, and he was my buddy. Dan battled with schizophrenia, and it was his second time there. And Mission Hospital, South Coast Mission Laguna. It's a round hospital, and it overlooks the beach, and not a bad place to be in the psych unit. But Dan and I, we would walk around, and one day I think together we walked 142 laps in one day. We would just walk around, the floor of the unit, and then it came time for group, and he goes, Tanya, I don't know if I can go in. And I said, okay. I go, well, I'll save you a seat. And saved him a seat. He knocked at the door, and I cued him over to a seat. And then I said, he would always do things with his hands. And I go, just sit on your hands. So I was like, he was my buddy, and people when you're struggling and you're suffering and you're in that state of mental despair, these people become your friends. They become your family. And I say that with like tears in my eyes right now.
I imagine that your compassion for the people around you was a great benefit to them during their period of suffering.
Perhaps. I would like to think so, but I had such compassion for the people who I was sharing time and space with, because these kids, and they were a lot younger than me, except for Lady Diana. She was older than me.
So I'm curious about something. The fact that you were helping people there, did that help you in terms of your own self-esteem and feeling of worthiness that you could actually be an asset to other people around you when you're in this really low place that you had gotten to?
Perhaps, yeah, maybe. I don't think it raised my self-confidence or esteem or something, but I think it maybe it just kind of like helped them go through what they're going through maybe a little bit easier, because I knew I would walk out fine. And I knew that, the people who I was sharing time and space with, they were struggling with this for the rest of their life. And it's going to be a roller coaster, not only for them, but for their loved ones. And I remember, my psychiatrist overprescribed Effexor.
It's an effective medication.
I went from 0 to 300 milligrams.
Oh, that sounds like way too much.
I went into mania. Like I almost was like, can I have your toothbrush so I can start scrubbing the kitchen floor,
Why so much?
I don't know.
I think those are increased in like units of 75 milligrams.
It was like, he may have, I don't know, but I got up to 300 and I was like, it put me in like panic, like, oh my God. I remember being at the nursing station and there was a new admit and they weren't helping him. And I think from what I remember, I think he was in a wheelchair and I was yelling at the nurse. And my nurse already, I called her Nurse Ratchet because she was a Nurse Ratchet. She was nasty. She wouldn't.
I don't think they like when you call them that. Oh,
I didn't call her that. Now I call her that. She was nasty. Like, keep in mind too, like I was in there for 10 days. I wore the same pajama for 10 days. I didn't shower, I think, for 6 or 7. 1, because I had to be watched. And 2, Nurse Ratchet, who I remember her name, but Nurse Ratchet wouldn't assign somebody to watch over me while I took a shower.
Why was that?
She just didn't like me. I don't know. But I wanted to take a shower. I mean, I would clean myself, but I didn't take a shower, I think, for like 6 or 7 days. I mean, that's clinical depression, you guys.
Yeah, that's not great for the self-esteem.
No, I was, but again, I didn't care like what I looked like. We were all in our pajamas, And I was in there actually with I'd never had him as a teacher, but he was a former teacher at an old high school of mine. And years later, he reached out. He goes, "Hey, do you still have your blue pajama?"
Oh, jeez.
I was like, "No, I don't." And no, I didn't care how I looked like. I was there to learn. I was there to get, maybe not even there really to learn yet because I was getting medically sound, And, but I remember this one day because you asked if there was like one moment. And there was one moment, and it was in a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy class or group. And I tend to call them classes because it was like school to me. I was learning. And, and I think the reason why I share that with people is like, if you do decide to go into treatment, whether it's behavioral or recovery, be a student. Don't be a victim. Don't be the addict. Like, be a student and want to make a difference in your life. Yes, it takes hard work. Yes, you'll relapse. I relapsed a couple of times, behaviorally. Absolutely. But just be a student. And I remember asking Carol Hawley, God bless her soul. She passed away from breast cancer, I think in 2018. And I said, "Carol, what is this?" And she goes, "It's CBT. Why?" And I go, "This is working." They did the triangle, the feeling, the thoughts, the behavior. And I was like, "Oh, this makes sense. This really makes sense to me." And I go, "This is working." I'm having a conversation with her as if I'm the only one in the room and there's like 40 or 50 other people. And that was my aha moment that this was working.
When you're doing cognitive behavioral work and you're kind of looking at how our thinking affects how we feel, there's often this emphasis on cognitive distortions, right? These ways, these patterns of thoughts that tend to become like particular to us. These things that we often do, like some people are black and white thinkers, some people are catastrophizers. Of those different distortions, what do you think was the one that sort of stood out to you in terms of the way that you might distort a situation?
Nobody ever asked me that question, but as I'm sitting here, I would probably say I was an all or nothing. I was like balls in or balls out, like all or nothing. And because that's where my mental state was. I mean, now it's different, but it was just, I'm either going to go in and do this, or I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to try to take my own life, or I'm not going to do it. Like, there was no gray. It was all or nothing. And but I remember sitting there, and Carol was there through me from the very beginning to the very end. And And so you have your groups, you have your classes, you have, and I was triggered in a lot of these classes, a lot of them. I mean, a lot of stuff came up. A lot of anger towards Nicole came up. I was horribly angry at Nicole for not sharing with anything. Nothing. I mean, she had the perfect, I was 10 years younger than Nicole. So my sisters are way older than me. So they were exposed, like they saw controlling behavior from Simpson. They saw, Denise took pictures of Nicole. So with me, I just thought Nicole was getting a divorce, because she was unhappy. I mean, divorces happen.
So there was a secret that was being kept from you because you were the youngest.
I was the youngest.
And you were being protected.
Yeah. Everything in hindsight, I was being protected. Yeah. And, being 10 years younger back then, that's quite a difference to throw on somebody. Yeah, my husband's beating me or whatever. You know what I mean? So it was like, so I had a lot of anger towards Nicole. And I remember throwing my teddy bear against the wall. I remember throwing my rubber pencil. I think I almost hit my psychiatrist. It was either my psychiatrist. No, it was the intern that they assigned me. They assigned me a private intern because of the high profile nature of this. Oh my God. When I was on the floor, still inpatient, I haven't graduated to partial yet, still inpatient. We have the hallway phone, right? And somebody goes, Tanya, you have a phone call. And I'm like, oh, okay. Thinking, oh, hi, Mom. No, hey, Tanya, this is the National Enquirer. How are you?
Oh, no, not them.
I was like, how the hell did you find me?
That's a good question. How did he find you?
They have their ways. I don't know. Somebody leaked something from somewhere from the outside because nobody knew outside of my social workers and the professionals who worked in the hospital. No one knew who my family was. Nobody. So somebody leaked. But I can't say it was somebody on the inside because I had such an amazing team of professionals helping me, like really helping me get well.
That's so awful. To have that kind of an intrusion of your privacy.
But get a load of what he says. He goes, you can either tell me the truth as to why you're there, he goes, or I'll rip you a new one as I'm in the psych unit.
He's saying this to you knowing that you're in a psychiatric facility.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'll just work with you. What else am I going to do? I'm here. You found me.
So you're trying to get better in a psychiatric facility.
And the National Enquirer finds me.
And the National Enquirer is the worst of them.
The worst.
They manufacture stories about celebrities being abducted by aliens.
Yes. And they were the ones who spread horrible rumors around about my sister. And the National Enquirer is just the worst of the worst. They're pond scum. And so I was like, okay, well, you found me. There's no denying it. I'm here. So we did a good story on mental health and my story, what I'm sharing with you right now. So that was another trauma. Like here I am thinking I'm in a safe space.
That's such a disaster. When it came to print, what did they put in the Enquirer?
I don't remember. I still have it though. It's in I saved everything. I saved my worksheets. I saved clippings. That's probably where that envelope is too, with the Brown family written on it.
So nothing about you being abducted by aliens?
No. It was a picture of me crying at our first candlelight vigil, me holding a candle with an I Remember Nicole button. No, it was a good story about like my sadness.
You know what? That is a pleasant surprise, given who we're talking about and the context of how they found you to write this story.
Well, and that's how he said, he goes, you can either work with me and we could write a great story, or I can rip you a new one. Which one do you want? I was like, God, gee, A or B, obviously. I went with A.
To hear you laugh about it and be so affable about such a horrible intrusion into your privacy, it takes a certain kind of spirit to be able to look at it that way.
I think kind of what you said before, that our family had been thrusted into like so much chaos that it was like a norm. Like maybe it was to be expected. Like it's almost like chaos is to be expected in this thing called life because it's been part of our life for so long. I don't know. It was kind of like, oh, God, okay, what next? Hit me.
So it sounds like all things considered, you had a really good experience.
I had a really good experience, and I had a good experience with my ex-fiance too. And I said to him, I go, please, whatever you do, because I worked with him. I worked for him. And I said, we had a continuing education school. And I said, whatever you do, I said, please do not cancel my insurance. I said, please, I go, I begged him. I said, please, I need this. I said, I don't know what's happening here. I said, but this isn't just about us. I go, this is like, I just begged him. And he goes, you don't have to worry. He says, I'll keep you on your insurance. Thank God. I had really, again, 20 years ago, insurance was different. I had really good freaking insurance. And I'm so grateful he didn't cancel.
So when it was all said and done, I know in your book and in conversations that you and I have had, reflecting back, you realized that a big part of your crisis was all of this unresolved grief around Nicole's loss, around friends from high school. There were a lot of losses, and that the accumulation of these losses had a tremendous impact on you. So much so that as you were moving forward in your journey and deciding you wanted to be a person who helped other people, that becoming a grief recovery specialist and deciding that you wanted to help and work with that population was a big part of it, because you felt like you had something to offer people who are struggling.
Exactly. But you know what's interesting is that I became a guiding mindful change coach before I became the grief recovery specialist, because I just thought, okay, maybe this is life management stuff. I mean, I didn't really know. It wasn't until before I moved to Florida is when I went, because when I moved to Florida, I wanted to like have a niche. So I really just like Dominique was already here. Denise was already living full-time in Italy. So I had a lot of time to think at home. And I was like, how did I end up where I ended up? Like, I really asked myself these questions, like, what caused me to do the things that I went through? And I said, it wasn't because I was like this depressed person my entire life who battled with mental health issues my entire life. That wasn't it. It was grief.
You know, in the grief trajectories that were published by NYU's School of Psychiatry and the research that they did on grief and loss and the different grief models that they created, there was a trajectory that is known as delayed onset grief. Mm-hmm. And it is often associated with multiple losses and often associated with traumatic losses, that people who have that kind of delayed onset grief often have had those kinds of experiences. And it sounds like you fit pretty neatly into that category.
You know, when I went to your seminar, when I went to your speaking engagement, when you talked about that, and I didn't catch it until you just said it just at this very moment, I was equating it to people that I had worked with in the past, family members, friends, moms who have lost kids. I didn't think that it was me too. And you're right. It was delayed onset grief, right? Is that what it's called? Delayed onset grief. Yeah. It took me 10 years later. You know, I mean, when I was in grad school, I specialized in REBT and CBT, solution-focused therapy. I didn't think about doing anything with grief until quite recently. And but yeah, that you're talking to the choir right now. Absolutely. Or you're not talking to the choir, but you're talking to me. You just spoke to me when you said that. It took me 10 years to really feel, and keep in mind too, it wasn't just all the losses. It was the repression. Like I couldn't speak my feelings. I couldn't voice it. I wasn't being heard. You know, during that time, we weren't being heard.
It sounds like, from what I can see, and you've written a book, and there's a lot of media presence, and you've been interviewed a lot, that this idea of being repressed, being shut down in terms of your telling of your story to people, that the lid has come off of that, and that you feel really safe and kind of comfortable to do that today.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm really grateful for you to give me this opportunity, because I would say about 98% of the people in the past, they're more interested in the case, the trial, domestic violence. And it's like, I get it. That's important. But I've got my own story.
I'll tell you, I really wanted to shift out of that. And I appreciate you speaking so much about the aspects of what was going on with your family with the trial. But I felt like I had a responsibility to pull us out of that and get into this story.
I appreciate it.
And I'll tell you why I did that. Because in your book, you even reference, my book is not about the gratuitous details and to satisfy the morbid curiosities of people who want to delve into our family's story at a tabloid level. And really, I'm not interested in any of that.
Yeah,
I'm really not.
Thank you. Because you can get it on the internet.
I'm actually really a lot more interested in your story as a survivor and what you're doing now and where you're trying to take this and working with people. And you've just recently moved to South Florida and you're trying to get some things going. And, and I hope that you have the opportunity to get in front of people and to work with people, because I think one of the things that's very different about you, Tanya, is that historically we've seen people who were public figures who had maybe powerful stories and inspirational messages, and they try to get into the helping space. But beyond their powerful story or inspirational message, it usually falls short. It doesn't go anywhere. I think you have the potential to take your inspirational message and move it further and actually do things with people, because you are a master's level counselor or educated, and because you have the life coach certification, and because you have the grief recovery certification. So you're trained. You took the time to be trained to actually have a methodology to help people. And at the back of your book, you have this kind of listing of tools to help people who are in these grieving and chaotic situations to manage crises. And I think all of that material and all of your information has value. And my hope is that you get in front of people who need you, because there are a lot of people out there struggling and suffering with all of these different things. And the fact that you, in a way, are a public figure, you have a lot to offer.
Thank you. And that's why I'm so grateful that you're giving me because now it's my story. We know Nicole's story. We know all of that now. The documentary is done. Docuseries is done. We know Nicole's life. I want people to know what my life was about and not just how it turned out because of that. It's just, I want to really just to be relatable to people. Like, I'm just like you. The only thing that's different is that my sister was married to somebody famous. Nicole's happen every single day, sadly enough. They happen every single day. Just sadly, she happened to be married to somebody famous. But fortunately, actually, because otherwise we wouldn't have seen so much change, in that. But but no, that inpatient. I want to kind of go back there to the inpatient program because, and I say this with a chuckle, it was in a quote, like quotes, air quotes. It was highly recommended, requested that Tanya go into a partial hospitalization program because I was a very complex case. And that's when they gave me the private intern, Patrick. And isn't it amazing, like how you remember people's names who have made like a huge impact in your life? And it was through this experience that inspired me to get back into and pursue my bachelor's degree. I had to go through the psych stage to go, wow, you know what? I want to give back to what was given to me.
Well, that's the inspiring part about it, is that you've turned all of this suffering into purpose. So one of the things that I had said at the beginning of all of this is that what is often lost on all of the rest of us, the public, while there's this tabloid tragedy going on that dominates all of the headlines, TV, it's everywhere, is that behind the trial of the century,
there were people.
They're just people. It's a family, and they're real people navigating real suffering. And your whole story is really the full trajectory of that. And in the end, it's a story of one who has overcome and now is able to bring that message of hope to other people.
Exactly. I mean, I don't look at the news. I look at the news totally different now. Before it's like, oh my God, somebody's laying in the middle of the street, a thug or whatever. And now I'm like, that's somebody's kid laying under that tarp. There's somebody's kid underneath that sheet. I don't care if that person was bad, evil, whatever. There is a family behind that person. And so my heart goes out to the people who, you can come from the best family and the worst kid can come out of it. And I look at things totally different now. And I think it's just because, but had I not gone through that, I probably would be viewing the news and crime and all of that totally.
Well, I think an experience like yours, losing your sister in that way, and then being treated so callously by the news media, that could really embitter a person to where you could become very cynical and disgruntled, and who would blame you, right? Mm-hmm. But you're in a very different place than all that.
But we all grieved very differently. Denise was very angry. And she even, she talks about it. I think Denise was angry for 15 years, but she channeled her grief. She channeled her anger and her grief into her advocacy.
And that's a great kind of pain into purpose. Mm-hmm. In a sense, you're doing the same thing, just in a different way.
In a different way, and everybody reaches these moments in their own time. Like now's my time, to share. When I published the book in 2012, we weren't talking about mental health issues back in 2012. And we wanted to publish it during the 20-year anniversary of Nicole and Ron, and kind of turn the table. Like, this isn't just about Nick and OJ. This isn't just about domestic violence. This is my personal memoir.
If somebody wanted to get a copy of the book, how would they go about that?
They can visit my website at tanyabrown.net. And I think it's under the About page. And if you scroll down, it's called Finding Peace Amid the Chaos, My Escape from Depression and Suicide.
Okay.
But get on my website and get it from me. I will personally sign it for you and get it to you. Don't get it on Amazon, because most likely you're going to get like Dear Amanda or Dear Dave, because some people return books to Amazon too.
If somebody wanted to get in touch with you to talk about having you as a public speaker, or having you a speaking engagement, or if they wanted to get in touch with you about doing some coaching, what's the best way to do all that?
They can email me at Tanya, Tanya, at tanyabrown.net. So I think my main mission and passion is to help people understand, pick up that phone, because you're not ready to leave this world yet. If you are struggling, look at all these kids who are being bullied and they're taking their lives. They're 10, 12, 13 years old. Don't be embarrassed. Talk to somebody. Parents, pay attention to your kids. They're not going through a phase. They're not just having a bad time. Maybe there's something really going on there. It's time to parent up and not be a friend to your kids. I think that's maybe why we all kind of turned out different than a lot of people, because my parents were always parents. They were never our friends.
That's an interesting point you bring up, and it actually comes up a lot, where you're kind of at this crossroads as a parent where you have to make some kind of disciplining decision for your kid, and you realize there's no way I could provide the discipline or the structure right now and have them like me at the same time. So I have to choose between being liked in this moment or providing structure.
I'm not a parent. I'm not one to give advice on that, but I know what worked for us is that my parents were never our friends. We were that house that people wanted to come to, but they were parents first. I feared my parents in a very healthy way. Like, I did not want to disappoint my parents. I'm sure I did when I was a teenager.
My hope would be that there's a balance of what we would call respect, where children recognize that there's a hierarchy, and that myself and these people that are raising me, we're not equals. We're not the same. And, you hope it's not through fear or intimidation that discipline is reached. You hope it's through a level of respect. And sometimes there has to be some level of consequence or structure so that people understand, so that young people understand that wrong actions carry consequences.
Yeah. And staying and following through on those consequences. I mean, again, I'm not a parent. I don't have a right to talk about it, but I think we live in such a busy, chaotic world, and that they're not paying attention a lot. I'm generalizing that a lot of parents out there may not be paying enough attention to their kids' activity on social media. Like I have a girlfriend of mine back home who she doesn't listen she doesn't even know what podcast is or whatever. But anyway, her daughter's all over social media. I mean, in our little local community, back home. And I'm like, do you have any idea what she's doing? And she's like, no. And I'm like, maybe you want to check this out, So it's like, just be a little bit more mindful of what is going on in your child's life. Get to know that. I was listening to a brief thing on Goldie Hawn, and she was giving a speech, and I think I saw it last night as I was laying in bed. And she said, how sad that we live in such a busy social media world where everybody is connected to their phones. And I could actually get choked up now just thinking about it, because she was so spot on with it. She goes, we are missing out on so many opportunities of experiencing love and joy, giving love, receiving love because of this darn phone. So maybe that's something, bring back how it was when we grew up. Like, you're home for dinner. TVs were off. Phones were unplugged because we got those telecallers.
I think I could see it from both sides.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, I feel as though young people need that opportunity to connect and
totally
find entertainment where it's not box in front of you.
Right.
You can look at it all the time, and it connects you to other people and to just instant attention. At the same time, my 14-year-old self really would have liked to have had an iPhone.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not going to lie to you. Like that.
True.
That would have been cool for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
Some of them maybe not so great, but
there's balances. There's checks and balances. It's just I just want people, if you're hurting, if you're going through something, if you're being bullied, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you're worried about something, if you're going through grief, and don't stay stuck in your pain. I didn't get through to the other side of the rainbow by myself. I had Carol, I had Patrick, I had my team, I had my professors. I leaned on my professors in my bachelor program, and they were pretty much the same ones in my master's program. Like, I leaned on people, and I got through it okay. Have I had hard times in between? Absolutely have I had hard times in between then and now, but I'm different. And I know, I know just picking up the phone and asking for that lifeline, like, and if somebody says, I don't have time for you right now, they're not a friend. If somebody is only there for you during the happy times, that's not somebody you want in your life.
I think that these hard times kind of reveal what the relationships are around you. And
I can't tell you how many friends I lost after Nicole was killed. I have a handful of people left from my childhood that the people who I went to high school, we'll always be family. But, there's 5 people outside of my friends from growing up that I can still call my friends. You know who your friends are when you know what hits the fan.
Yeah, I think the circumstances that you had and everything that was going on with your family and all, it causes you to have to be selective about who you let in.
It's kind of like, what am I willing to accept and tolerate in somebody or not? And I made that inventory, and now I know. But the selective process, I think my mom said to me one time, and I know we're going back, but my mom said to me one time, she goes, I think what Daddy and I had worked against you. And I go, what do you mean? I said, I thrived. It's like I'm striving to have something, like to find something like what you and Daddy have or had at the time. And before he passed. And she goes, we don't exist anymore. And so the Tanya, the baby of the family who has been sheltered and coddled and cared for by mom and dad up until their death, pretty much, was searching for what mom and dad had: respect, adoration. You look at every picture that my dad has with my mom, he's admiring her. And that type of respect and love, I don't know. I saw it with you and your wife last night. It does exist. But I think I've been searching for it. But no, this has been really great. But yeah, that would be my last hurrah for all of you. Is like, if you're hurting, no matter what, just, there's resources for everybody for every type of pain.
I think your message about, speaking up and break the silence. People are saying
break the silence.
Break the silence. Yeah. And I think that's it. And my hope is that there's less stigma today than there once was when you were going through what you were going through, and even when Nicole was going through what she was going through, that people are more likely to make that call today because they realize like that doesn't have to be a shameful, stigmatized. It doesn't have to be a secret.
It doesn't need to be a secret. Secrets kill. Secrets kill. Secrets killed my sister. People kept her secret away from services. Nicole kept her secret to herself, and it killed her. If I kept my secret to myself, I'd be dead. So secrets kill on so many levels. And if they don't kill you physically, they'll kill you in every meaning of the word, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically.
I believe that, and there's a lot of evidence to support that. And I'm glad that one thing social media and all of this ability to kind of just yell into a bullhorn at the world has done is that it has connected a lot of people and given forum and audience to understand these kinds of messages and to, communicate about how to get your needs met in these situations.
And there are nasty things out there. Somebody said something really nasty to me on one of my posts, and a lady who I used to work with at Laguna Treatment Hospital in California, she goes, delete this person. And I'm like, no way. I go, I'm keeping that stuff up. But if there is a post that somebody writes about you and it does affect you, delete it. You don't want that energy in your space. Me, I'm in a different space now in my mind. I'm just like, no, because you're the one who looks like the idiot, not me.
I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast
I like
recently,
him.
And he was talking about the comments sections of his posts, when he puts episodes or just material on social media. And he does what he calls post and ghost. He'll just put his post out and then he's out. He doesn't read the comments. Yeah. And what he said about the comments was really one of the most funny and sort of profound things. I would have never thought of this on my own. He said, let me ask you a question. Do you think Michael Jordan is going through YouTube and commenting on everything? I said, no, because people who have things to do and have things going on in their lives, they're not posting comments.
Yeah.
Don't spend a lot of time with these people who really just have nothing else better to do but try to take somebody down.
Yeah, don't pay attention to it. I mean, and then that's perfect because, people have said to me in the past, like, Tanya, you got to start liking your posts and you got to start commenting back. And I'm like, yeah, I'll try. But, I can't get to everybody.
You do have to do that. But right? I mean, it's part of growing an audience.
But it's like you can't, you just got to, just pay attention to what somebody's comment does to you. How it makes you feel.
Yeah, if they're being supportive or engaging in the message appropriately.
Yeah, and if they're not, take them off. Who cares? But this one particular person, I was like, no, I'm going to keep her on for a little bit. It's good.
See
what happens. But yeah, anyway, no, this has been great. This has been, the first of many, because I need to share my story because I am so sad and tired of people living life in pain when I know that there's somebody to help them, whether that's me, whether it's you, or somebody that we may know that would be a good fit for them.
Well, Tanya, thank you again for coming and sharing and being so generous with your time and, being willing to say so much. I really appreciate it.
You're
I
welcome.
think that we've done something pretty cool here today.
And we could do a part 2 and 3.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, anytime you have anything going on that you want to come talk about, I will make you come on back over here and we'll get it going.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much, Eric. Yeah, this has been great.
All right, everybody. Tanya Brown, the Good Counsel Podcast.